3 days ago, a woman called Lisa Hagen published a quite remarkable article in respects to which way the wind is clearly blowing to those of you who are seeking to make your lives better, who are trying to do hard things, break addictions, and fundamentally climb out of this hell of depression, of anxiety, of apathy. This is a very important video I'm about to share with you. And it is very important you hear the bias, the abhorrent justification for behavior that seeks to keep you in that hell, that would have their boots be on your head, crushing your lungs, not allowing you to breathe. I have skimmed through this first and foremost, but we're going to go into this right now. We're going to read it together, and you can see, again, the agenda of the enemy. So here we go. Here's the title. Masturbation, abstinence is popular online. Doctors and therapists are worried. Okay. Nothing scares me. Nothing hurts me anymore. A young YouTuber tells the camera as snowflakes cut across the frame. He is shirtless in a Michigan January. He tells viewers to make a point about embracing discomfort in order to become a great and powerful man. A sentiment that I think all of you can get behind. Of course, going to the gym is not easy. It is difficult. But what are the consequences of that kind of behavior? We grow. We move. The YouTuber who goes by the handle I Am Lucid, familiar with I Am Lucid, tremendous creator, tells the camera he can stand the below freezing temperature because he has been taking cold showers every day and crucially hasn't masturbated to pornography in a year. That's the most beta thing you can do. That's the weakest thing any man can do, he says. The video is part of a thriving online landscape dedicated to helping men suppress the urge to masturbate. Okay, first, false narrative. It is not to suppress anything. It is to integrate something. If it is to suppress anything, it is to suppress compulsive, addictive behavior. In the same line of events, you can say that a heroin addict trying to kick the drug of heroin is suppressing an urge to do heroin. Watch the framing. It's very, very subtle. The language that this individual is using here is trying to frame this narrative in a way that is absurd, that is negative in its nature. You have to watch the enemy very, very carefully in this respect. So let's move on here. More than 2 decades of growing internet use has surfaced fears about the social and psychological impacts of nearly unfettered access to this kind of material. But many researchers and sex therapists worry that the online communities that have formed in response to these fears often endorse inaccurate medical information, exacerbate mental health problems, and in some cases, overlap with extremist and hate groups. It's remarkable to me that this narrative of men who are seeking to quit behavior that has kept them in depression is immediately, you see how quickly that was, to immediately link behavior, trying to do the right thing, to acts of extremist and hate. I've never heard of such an absurd narrative in my life. I can't believe it. And notice how this article is not first and foremost about the damaging impacts of an industry that propagates some of the most heinous crimes you can experience and you have read about and you've heard about on planet Earth. But no, it's those individuals that are voluntarily trying to make their lives better. I think this, you can tell I'm getting an emotional reaction here. I'm trying to remain stoic, but we cannot allow this kind of behavior. It is amazing. I mean, it's part of the human condition, isn't it? To throw stones, to cast stones at those who are trying to make their lives better. There are many variations on how and why members of these communities choose to abstain from masturbation. One of the central concepts is the community known as NoFap. a play on a onomatopoeic word for masturbation popularized on the notorious 4chan message boards. The term nofap has come to encompass a set of unproven claims that not masturbating confers social and health benefits. Well, it's certainly not unproven, because Gary Wilson wrote his book, Your Brain on Porn, many years ago, with many scientific literature denoting the diminishment in grey matter as a consequence of using this kind of material. Again, so this individual is just cherry picking the information that is congruent to her narrative here. There is a large and active forum on Reddit that uses the name, as well as a company known as the NoFap LLC, which offers support and for a fee and runs popular forums on the website. There's no fee, again, that I'm involved with NoFap. Maybe on the website, I don't know, but the Reddit forum is a completely free subreddit. But that company is just one part of a far larger community. Others, including self-styled coaches, also use the term. By the way, I distance myself from that term completely. I do not associate with it, because I believe what they propagate is a form of suppression. I do not believe it teaches and educates men about integration of sexual energy, libido, the sexual reflex, whatever you want to call it, and misses out on key parameters that allow you to not be frustrated in that way, including meditation, including breath work, including other various acts of sexual transmutation, pardon me. So again, I disassociate from NoFap. I have no affiliation with it. I think it's only one step in several steps in a system that will allow you to change your life. Just so I'm very clear on that point. They offer advice, services, and sometimes treatment programs to those struggling to reach their goals of not self-pleasuring. While some figures in the space are religious, most frame their advice as science-based forms of self-improvement or as a cure for this kind of addiction, a popular concept that has been disputed by scientists and researchers who study sexuality. Of course they do. I bet they do. I'm interested to hear your opinion here. Measuring the online and offline influence of NoFap content is difficult. A 2022 study in the International Journal of Impotence Research by a group of urologists who study social media content found semen retention and its related hashtags to be the most popular men's health topic on TikTok and Instagram. Unlike every other men's health topic they studied, none of the semen retention posts were coming from doctors, okay? For those who believe they may be addicted to pornography, the official NoFap LLC website suggests no masturbation for 90 days, during which the brain supposedly reboots like a computer. Others claimed the benefits of avoiding masturbation may include superpowers like confidence and more romantic interest from women. Okay, so second mistake here. This is not predicated on an arbitrary idea that after 90 days your brain will reset. It's predicated on the idea of spermatogenesis, meaning that sperm matures at around 70 to 80 days. 70 to 80 days. So being abstinent and continent for that amount of time is the only time that your sperm cells can get to full maturity. That's what it's based on. And that is science. Again, this individual is cherry picking what she would like for her personal agenda here. NoFap says it's not a anti-masturbation or anti-porn. And today, its creator says it is a peer support group for those with problematic use of this illicit material. I have seen claims on social media saying that SR can boost your testosterone levels. Many studies that I've cited before, which is true. Cure erectile dysfunction, that is also true. Make you more manly, you stronger. Cure depression, make you more successful. Clear up your skin, says Ashley Winter, a urologist who has publicly been critical of these ideas. There is no medical evidence that it does any of those things, she says, adding that in many male adults abstaining from ejaculation will merely result in nocturnal emissions or wet dreams. NoFap itself does not endorse every claim Winter says she has seen on social media. So let's be transparent with this particular argument. Are there points that some creators will embellish on? Of course they will. That's called marketing. And I think you need to be educated to a certain degree to understand that. That's just part and parcel of the world we live in. I have cited many studies in many of my videos, which you can find on this channel in reference to the increased level of testosterone. The most quoted study is after 7 days, an increase around 145 to 150% in testosterone levels. These levels do dip down, but it also has an impact on your androgen receptor sensitivity, meaning you get a greater expression of the testosterone that is in your blood. So it is not so much of a stretch of the imagination to say that you get a greater expression of testosterone because your androgen receptors, which express masculine features like muscle bulk, like hair growth, like deeper voice through these receptors. So there's your science right there. Anecdotally, there's a whole host of evidence that says depression goes away, ED goes away. I mean, ED for me is the one that I think would be more obvious. You know, if you're leaving yourself alone, of course you're going to be acutely sensitive towards novel sexual expression in your environment. But if you're destroying your dopamine receptors in your brain, if you're killing the gray matter because you are inundating your consciousness with hyper-sexualized material, of course there's going to be a desensitivity to it. That's just a natural law of life. That's a natural law. If you ate pizza for 7 days a week, eventually pizza stops tasting that good. That is called novelty. That is called tolerance. Yeah, that word tolerance. Maybe if you understand the English lexicon, you can understand the word tolerance. So that's just tolerance there. To her, the popularity of nofap ideas indicates a failure by the traditional medical establishment to serve the many people experiencing real concerns around sexual health, performance, and a desire. From a joke to an existential battle, myths and spiritual practices related to masturbation have been around for centuries, including the notion that ejaculation is somehow tied to strength. The term nofap originally began by popping up in bodybuilding forums in the mid-2000s. But its popularity escalated when an official nofap Reddit forum or subreddit was founded in 2011 by then college student Alexander Rhodes. In a 2012 radio interview, Rhodes said he'd seen a study on Reddit claiming that men's testosterone increases after a week of not masturbating. It was just like kind of a joke, said Rhodes during that radio interview. He and other Reddit users posted about wanting to recreate the experiment at home, and this was all occurring in the comments. So then really what was necessary in my eyes was just a place, a centralized location where everybody could try this kind of technique out. Rhodes also created nofap.com, trademarked it for its company. NPR had reached out to Rhodes and his company multiple times, but they never accepted an interview or responded to specific requests for comment. Scholars who study the nofap world note that it emerged alongside what is called the manosphere, a collection of online spaces devoted to the idea that men are under threat from feminism and modern life. That view thrives offline as well. I mean, if we're really going to divulge into a debate about whether or not extreme feminism has been detrimental to modern man and woman, then, of course, I mean, this individual probably is, I don't maybe think they have 3 digits in their IQ, so this is probably why entertaining an argument at that point is pointless. A national poll conducted in the late 2022 found that 4 out of 10 Americans believe society has become too soft and feminine. Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson did a special for Fox in 2022 called The End of Men, drawing attention to the decline of manhood, of virility, of physical health, all of which together threaten to doom our civilization. In masturbation abstinence groups, the ubiquity of internet porn is often framed as a major factor in this alleged decline, and abstaining for the masturbation is held up as a cure. Pornography is a complicated topic, not least because access to it is virtually ubiquitous today. While many people consume it, many also hold the strong objections to it. Some oppose it on religious grounds, others oppose it based on its use of sexist or racist tropes, or their concern about working conditions in the industry, or the fact, perhaps, that it is propagated by individuals who facilitate the most horrendous and horrific crimes in the history of the human race, rape, and let's just say child stuff, for fear of upsetting the YouTube algorithm. Others still, including many in the masturbation abstinence community, say they worry about the impact on porn on human relationships or psychology. While some consumers of nofap content believe they are waging an existential battle against porn, plenty of others experiment with abstinence as a form of self-improvement. Advice on the forum often includes commonplace suggestions such as better diet, exercise, and sleep. Online abstinence forums are not limited to just men. Through past surveys of the nofap subreddit have found that the vast majority of users are male. Some users say they are under 18 and share intimate personal details with adult users, mixed in alongside ringing anecdotal endorsements of abstinence. Many posters write about loneliness, insecurity, and a lack of sexual experience. Ideas about masturbation and abstinence got a big boost from the man who interviewed Rhodes on the radio in 2012, Gary Wilson. So we mentioned Gary Wilson before, a former massage therapy instructor in Oregon who died in 2021. Rest in peace, brother. Ran a website called yourbrainonporn.com. While he was neither a medical doctor nor PhD scientist, he had given a viral TED talk arguing that internet porn is a hazard for men's brain. You don't need to be a doctor or a therapist to interpret data, to interpret empirical evidence, to interpret facts, do you? I really hate that how that is the commonplace authority that, hey, I know some very, very stupid doctors. I know individuals with 3 degrees who can it's a monopoly. It's a financial gambit, right? You can only access these things if you have the financial assets in order to do these things. It is not a consequence of your IQ level or your competence. It is a consequence of your means and who you know in some cases as well. With internet porn, a guy can see more hot babes in under 10 minutes than his ancestors could see in several lifetimes. The problem is he has a hunter-gatherer brain. A heavy user's brain rewires itself to this genetic bonanza. Wilson told the audience in a video that had received more than 16 million views. The video now includes a warning that states several of Wilson's assertions aren't supported by medical or physiological research. I love the links here. NoFap's message today is strongly aligned with Wilson's arguments that watching this is addictive, causes conditions such as erectile dysfunction, brain fog, and can even involuntarily change one's sexual desires. Within a few years, major media outlets were running profiles of Rhodes and his touted approach to pornography addiction, including the New York Times, CNN, the BBC, and NPR. So is it a magic pill, ladies and gentlemen? Or gentlemen, I suppose. Or ladies, I don't know. NPR spoke to 5 former or current users of the NoFap subreddit or website. Those who agreed to be quoted all asked NPR not to use their last names in order for them to discuss their intimate sexual histories without fear of negative reactions from family, colleagues, or backlash from supporters of masturbation abstinence. They all turned to online forums to connect with others struggling with similar problems. Initially, they all felt a sense of relief after finding these online communities. Tim, in his 60s, described his relationship with porn as pretty average until his wife came to him and said his porn use was destroying her self-esteem. She threatened to end the marriage if he didn't stop. When Tim tried to stop, he struggled, a sign to him that he was an addict. After years of finding only religious resources for quitting porn, Tim welcomed the NoFap company's secular approach. He said that the idea of quitting masturbation seemed insane to him at first, but it worked. When Tim felt tempted to watch it, he'd post in the forums. People would chime in with support, offer suggestions like taking a walk. Tim is one of many users who say they've extended their abstinence indefinitely. He said he last masturbated back in 2006. For me, it would be dangerous and I don't want to risk it, he said. It threatens my sobriety, which would threaten my marriage. He said it saved his life. Derek has had a different experience as a teenager growing up in Kentucky. He watched porn for a couple of hours after school every day. In church, he was told that masturbation was a sin. Finding this community, he said, felt like striking gold. He found advice that his pornography use and masturbation were connected to the erectile dysfunction he struggled. This referred to as PIED, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. I felt like I had found all the answers pretty much, and it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders at the time. Derek tried the 90-day masturbation abstinent reboot, but said he could never make it that long, which made him feel awful. Every single time that I would fail, it was just a constant loop of, oh, we're doing so well, and then, oh, I messed up, said Derek. I would beat myself up throughout the entire process. Just a little step in here, because I can tell where this is going, is relapses are part of the process, right? Failure is always part of the process for anything worth pursuing in life. Nobody makes it the first time round. I didn't make it the first time round. I can identify a lot with this individual, but I know I can tell that this individual is going to use this as an excuse that, oh, the depression and anxiety of relapse means it's not worth it. No, of course it's not. You wouldn't say that to somebody who was seriously addicted to heroin or cocaine. No, you'd say, look, this is part and parcel of the process of healing, right? Besides the reboots, he picked up other ideas from the no-fap world. If you're going to masturbate, all of your testosterone is going to go down the toilet and you're going to be like a raisin, you know? Oh, scary, said Derek. I mean, a very rudimentary way to describe it. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say your prolactin goes up, which has an inverse relationship with testosterone. But hey, however you want to describe it to yourself. He doesn't look at no-fap content anymore, and he feels more comfortable with the amount of porn he watches. Oh, it's exactly how I said it was. I feel good. Let's make you feel good about your addiction. You're not doing anything wrong, my friend. More recently, he got off his ADHD medication and now realized it had been causing his ED, not pornography. Now, 24, he looks back at his time with the ideas and wish he hadn't spent so much of high school stressed out about masturbation. I think we may need to make a distinction here and a delineation here. And, maybe my personal color is going to come out in this particular point. But the problem I have is control. If something is outside the remit of your control and you are a slave to it, it is bad. It is addiction. It is not giving you fundamentally what you want. We find these communities, we seek these circles because we are discontented about where we are in life at this present moment. The system that we have therefore been employing in order to try and move us to a better place is broken. Therefore, we look at it and we reorganize it. We try to change it. And part and parcel of that ineffective system is the parts that we can't control. I used to smoke a lot of weed. I haven't smoked weed since 2018, right? Haven't touched it since. I used to smoke every single day. I used to wake and bake. I used to wake up and skin up, and then I would have my first joint in the morning. And I was so depressed, so anxious, I didn't enjoy my life. I was living at home. I didn't have a girlfriend. I was smelly all the time. I didn't have many friends. I threw that away, as well as other habits that were no longer serving me, and my life got better. The premise on most of these arguments should always be outcome-based, not ideology. Jack, now 26, says he was an insecure teenager when he found the NoFap subreddit. Then he said it seemed to be everywhere in men's self-help spheres online. All these magic pill promises of porns and addiction that causes all these problems if you just quit. All these problems are fixed, says Jack. He says he now believes his porn use was normal, not out of control, after an early success with a reboot challenge. Jack says he would try to abstain from porn. He says now he believes that this use was normal, not out of control, after an early success with a reboot challenge. Jack said he would try to abstain from this probably more than 100 times. He said he would spend hours every day thinking about how to avoid masturbating, often losing sleep. In the meantime, Jack says he became interested in dressing as a woman. Jack does not identify as transgender and uses he, him pronouns. Of course, he has pronouns. He interpreted this change as something porn was doing to him based on what he'd seen in the NoFap subreddit. The common themes were porn is turning me gay, or porn is making me feel like a cross-dresser, or porn is making me feel like I want to be dominated, or like I like transgenders, Jack said. The NoFap website page about pornography addiction says using porn will drive people to more and more extreme fetishes or kinks. I mean, the last point that this person is making is correct. That this addiction escalates. I mean, it's like any gateway drug, isn't it? I mean, we've seen this phenomenon before. The last point that they are making here is that if you do something, if you experience a hyperstimuli, and then you build up a tolerance to it, then your baseline changes, and then you look for something else that is more stimulating. This is not outside the remits of things that we already know. If you smoke weed you get used to smoking weed, and then you want to go and try some. Maybe you try a bit of coke, right? And then it's called a gateway drug. That term exists for this real phenomenon. So again, another baseless, tremendously baseless argument here. Defining addiction. Many people in the nofap spaces believe they are addicted to porn, but the word addiction means different things to different people. Okay, let's get clear on our definitions here. As a student at the Conservative Evangelical Liberty University, Joshua Grubbs remembers hearing a lot about this kind of addiction, including a speaker who claimed it affected 50% of Christian men. He kept, really hammering on this idea of porn addiction. And I remember being 18, 19 myself at the time and thinking something about that doesn't make sense, said Grubbs, who now researches addiction and psychology at the University of New Mexico. And he began studying these ideas more seriously. Grubbs kept finding one thing over and over again. We would basically ask people, do you think that viewing porn is morally wrong? Do you think it troubles your conscience? Do you think it's bad? And if they said yes, but were still using, they were just dramatically more likely to say that they must have an addiction, said Grubbs. One study Grubbs found that among people who self-identify as porn addicts, the average frequency of porn use was less than 10 times a year. That is the biggest cap I have ever heard. That is the biggest, less than 10 times a year. Either the pool of people that they were sampling are the biggest liars in the world, or you have no idea how devious, how toxic this sludge can be. There is no official porn addiction diagnosis in the US. A condition called hypersexuality, which included a subsection for pornography, was considered and rejected by psychiatrists who compile the influential Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The proposed condition was not approved because the range of normal sexual behavior is so broad that it's hard to define what is outside that range. I'll tell you what it is if it is outside the remit of your control. If you become impulsive, if you transgress into limbic system response so frequently, if your prefrontal cortex barely has any neural connections in the gray matter that you can't stop yourself from doing something. And that's my interpretation. Gentlemen, this is becoming to be a quite long video. If you're interested in me kind of finishing off this article, please just drop a part 2 or next one down in the comment sections below. And I will continue reading this, although it's against my better judgment because I think some of the claims in here are particularly poor. I mean, again, it's just amazing to me that somebody could find a problem with men who are trying to... Celibacy has been around for years and years and years. This isn't a new phenomenon. This isn't anything to be worried about. If there's anything to be worried about, it's the fact that I could probably find this person's sister and they probably have a OnlyFans in their Instagram account, or a friend's, or a cousin. Like, that's the concern. That's the concern. Us trying to get a little bit more control in our life, actually chart a course for the ship that we are driving, that's not your concern. They're nowhere right in the end. These aren't theories, they're facts. Speak soon.